Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome to the House of Spielberg, the latest entry into the Houselights series here on the Nerd Party Network. This week we're starting our decade-by-decade snapshot of the works of Steven Spielberg with his feature film debut in 1974, The Sugarland Express. I'm joined again by my friends, the hotshot patrolman Tristan Riddell and 70s bulk buy car salesman John Mills. Gentlemen, let's hit the road and talk Spielberg's first, and 1974, it's a big year. Were we just talking about 1974? It feels like we talk about this year a lot.
I think Spielberg had a film before this, though, in 71, didn't he?
Yes, but
I think he did.
It's partially lost and it was only released in one theater. So this was his first wide release.
So this is his first real, this is the one that counts.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I understand.
Right.
I understand. Well,
we debated long and hard about the meaning of Spielberg's first film, as film critics do. But yes,
but I feel compelled at that point, of course, to raise the question because as soon as you said it and somebody heard it, they said, wait a minute, then."
No, we would get the email.
I'm just being the voice of the people.
No, that's
here.
my trick.
That's
I want people to comment and boost our social media, so I purposely say dubious facts. And leave out the OU in certain words. It's very special. But
I messed it up. I'm sorry.
No. But yeah, so Sugarland Express, now normally here on Houselights, we would start out with, where did you first see this film? Did you maybe catch it in the theaters? But I think, at least for the first time with the three of us, this is the first time any of us have seen this movie. So how was last week when you watched this? So let's just do, again, we'll get into a lot of the minutiae of the film, but first impression, Tristan, you're going to be, I'm not going to say the hot seat because this caravan of cars is going real slow. We don't, there's no speeding. We're keeping it below, the odometer's low. But yeah, what was your first impression of the Sugarland Express, or maybe this? What were you expecting?
I think that's a good place to start about what we were expecting. I think that's great because when we discussed what we were going to do next, because we were finishing up 70s Coppola, which is a rich area, and so we're like, okay, well, who do we do next? Who do we want to tackle? And all three of us were kind of in the mood to do Spielberg, and we're like, okay, well, we can't. We cannot do.
We don't have the time, guys.
We don't have the time to do all of Spielberg. And as we talked about last week, but if you haven't heard last week, what we're doing is we're doing one movie per decade of Steven Spielberg. But we chose the movies that aren't always talked about. So we're not going to be talking about Jaws. We're not going to be talking about Schindler's List. We're not going to be talking about Jurassic Park. We're going to be talking about the stuff that isn't the worst on his filmography, but is something that you don't normally hear talked about in podcasts.
It's a little off the beaten path. It's not the tent poles.
Right.
I think that's the best way to put it. And Sugarland Express, the three of us had not seen it. None of us had seen it, like you said, Darren. And so I specifically didn't look into this. I didn't read anything about it. It was kind of like how we tackled The Conversation. By Coppola. John, you had seen it, but Darren and I hadn't seen it. And so I was like, okay, all I know is that Gene Hackman has headphones. That's all I know about The Conversation. And with Sugarland Express, the only thing that I knew about it was that Goldie Hawn was in it. That's it. I didn't know if it had anything to do with trains or cars. I had no idea if it was a chase or a prison escape or if it was a road film. No idea. And so I had no expectations for it. And with it being a pseudo first film for Spielberg, I wasn't expecting anything too polished, but I was looking for something on the innovative side. I was like, what are we going to see that shows promise? What are we going to see that, Steven Spielberg is the most famous director. People who know nothing about movies know Steven Spielberg's name. And he's synonymous
he's
with
in
directors.
Lego. He has a Lego minifig. He's been everywhere.
Well, if that doesn't say success, then I don't know what does.
You've made it big time. I'm a fig.
So that's my main thing. I was really I had very few expectations other than a glimmer of, for lack of a better term, genius. A glimmer of genius. A glimmer of something special. John, how about you?
I mean, I think probably I'm in that same sort of category where I don't know if I was looking for a glimmer of genius, but knowing full well that it came out before Jaws, my eye was turned toward, I want to watch this with an eye thinking I would see this and say, yeah, this guy can handle this big movie adaptation that we want to do of a terribly popular novel. I want to give it to this kid and have him direct it. And that's all I was looking for. I was just looking for what would demonstrate to a studio head that they would be willing to gamble that much money and any sort of prestige on this new kid who's just come on the scene, who's part of this new group of filmmakers. You know, you've got Scorsese and Coppola with all of the buzz. You've got, Lucas was in fact making some of that indie buzz going on, American Graffiti and stuff like that. What made somebody look at this and say, Steven Spielberg can do Jaws. He can make that happen. And that's all I was looking for.
Yeah, for me, I didn't know very much either. I mean, I knew it was on his list of, filmography, and the only other work of this kind of pre-Jaws era, I own a copy of Duel, which is his kind of road trip in a way, maybe not so much of the giant semi chasing the scared man across the Southern California desert. So yeah, I had that, in the back of my mind of, okay, is this going to be Duel 2.0? And in a ways it kind of is. It's just a bigger, longer, drawn out, but you could see he had already established his thoughts of, because in that movie, I'd seen behind the scenes for Duel that he had sketched out on his motel room. He had put paper all along the wall and he had sketched out every segment of the freeway that they had driven to put it all together. And I could see him doing that for this. Like, okay, here's the part where they're going to be in this town. And here's the part where they're going to go through the parade. And here's the part with the shooters at the end. And I could see him, doing a similar forte into the planning. But the only other thing I knew was the main theme. My roommate in college was really big into soundtracks, and he had a disc with a lot of John Williams scores on it. And one of the tracks was the Sugarland Express, and it's kind of that harmonica, theme we hear at the beginning. Again, tells you nothing about the movie.
Right.
I'm like, is this a Western? Is this going to be back in time? That's all I knew. And yeah, so not only did it really start off, Steven Spielberg's career, but started off a long running collaboration with John Williams. And we'll get, or let's just start with the music. We can start anywhere we want, but what did you two think about, we had a little bit of pop music from the day thrown in, but you also had the harmonica motif, and it was very, very light music. There wasn't a lot, at least in memory. After watching it once, maybe more would soak in. But John, what did you feel of the music of the Sugarland Express?
I actually watched the end credits again to make sure that I was sure that John Williams had done the score. And that doesn't take anything away from Williams. I know that Williams does stuff that's not Star Wars and Raiders and Jurassic Park and Schindler's List and all of that stuff. I know that he does stuff that is way more low key. He's a true composer in the truest sense. And the stuff that he's known for boxes him in. But this was so low key. This was so minimal in terms of the music's presence. There's only one point where it really makes itself known, and it's at the end when they're going for the river, when they're trying to make that last push into Mexico. All of a sudden, the music gets a little bit more bombastic, and that was the first moment where I said, "Oh, okay, I can kind of see somebody is making themselves known, audially here." But it was a very, I don't want to say restrained, but it's the only word I can think of right now. But it's a very restrained use of music here. And I think it's very sensible because of the fact that it establishes early on this is based on a real event. If you saturate it with music, it takes it out of that more documentary, real world feel. It's sort of the whole reason that Dog Day Afternoon works so well is there's not a lick of music through the whole thing. And it makes it feel much more authentic. And I think that happens here as well, which is probably why that music cue at the end is so jarring, is all of a sudden the music became a character in the chase. And I was like, whoa, wait, this is decidedly different from how it was approached before. So, the music was good. I thought that the harmonica work was great, of course.
I didn't look him up in the credits. Lead harmonicist. Who was it? Who added so much?
You know what? I'll defer that to Tristan because I know his love of harmonica music is very deep, and I couldn't recall the guy's name.
It's true. I fall asleep to it every single night.
But yeah, what did you think, Tristan? Did the subtlety of the score, does that impact based off of not sensationalizing the event? Because again, based off a true story, there's only so much you can do. I mean, they never went over 45 miles an hour or something during this whole thing.
I think what you mentioned that it was did the subtlety work for me? I feel like the subtlety was a little bit too much for me because I honestly am having a hard time recollecting. Like I am. I wish I had a stronger opinion other than I don't know. Like I think what I remember hearing, I didn't really dig on that much. Like towards the end, like when during the denouement, like when Atherton was killed and the police, the cop was released and everything like that, and they undid his handcuffs and everything like that. I thought it was fine. It's just I don't have an opinion because it was so subtle that I didn't really notice too terribly much.
I think that's fair.
I think, we all have the consensus of it was there. They definitely had that main theme, which is probably why there's never been an album released of this track. It's just the main theme that has found its way to modern ears. But let's talk about the story and the cast. Again, man, everyone is really young in 1974. And we have, Goldie Hawn. I didn't realize that Clovis, William Atherton, who we would later see in such films as Ghostbusters, as Walter Peck, and we'd also see in Die Hard as the is owed a punch and comeuppance news reporter. But he's a really nice guy in this movie as he's low-key breaking out of... It's so slow, guys. Like, this movie's pace, it moves the story, but I don't think rush was ever a word used in this film. But what did you guys think of these characters? It's not Bonnie and Clyde. And we spend a good amount of time with these people, but John, did you care about these characters by the end and their fate that they were given, or was it a little too slow?
I sort of cared. I didn't feel a great emotional connection to them throughout the movie. I don't fault the performances. I do fault the pace. I think you're right to throw that out there. And I think that it works just to the detriment of trying to establish that emotional connection, because that emotional connection could have been, as does Atherton, as does, I believe in everybody in this movie as I think through them. Like, these are very pleasant performances. They're very grounded. Spielberg's known for getting, he really had a talent early on in his career for connecting with that very blue collar sensibility. None of these people are rich people. None of these people have heirs. All of these people are just everyday people, and they just exist in the world. And I think that's always been Spielberg's calling card up to a certain point, where his movies always followed people who were people that you could believe you would run across them on the street. And he got those types of performances from the actors here. But the pacing does work against them. And I will say that this is one thing that jumped out at me as a signature of the film, is the fact that this is basically a family-friendly version of The Getaway, or as Tristan said, Bonnie and Clyde. And in my mind, or Darren, you said Bonnie and Clyde, sorry. And like the whole thing that pops in my brain is, oh, of course Spielberg did the family-friendly version of this, right? Like that's his wheelhouse. He's not going to do he's not going to have, you put this in another director's hands, and when they go to the bathroom, I instantly thought of True Romance with Tony Scott directing Quentin Tarantino's script. And there's basically like softcore going on at every opportunity that they can with those characters. And with this, instead, you see this, again, incredible restraint where they're in there and they're having the sexual innuendo and they're exchanging the clothes, but it's done in a very silly sort of way where the adults could laugh and the kids won't get scandalized and grandmothers won't protest the movie and that sort of thing.
That scene actually was where I understood Goldie Hawn's character. I know it's early on and that's what it was meant for, but I remember my wife and I were talking back and forth like what's her game? What's going on? It's only 4 months left on pre-release. What is with this character? And then when she throws him into the bathroom stall and she starts taking off clothes and switching clothes and everything like that, but she still wants to do stuff. I was like, oh, okay, so she's crazy. Okay, all right, okay, cool. All right, so I can now move forward with this movie, understanding Goldie Hawn's character.
Yeah, I think her character, man, and honestly, the scene that sticks the most out to me is when they're driving through the parade, and like everybody's like handing them gifts and pigs and it's like small town, I guess. Like there's nothing to do. This is now, and it made me wonder, again, this is a film that none of us had really seen and we weren't really connected to, but the actual events of this, again, were based off of a real event that happened in Texas heading to Sugarland. And that was only in 1969, which was less than 5 years to the release of this movie. So I almost feel like we're missing a piece of, we don't have any sort of nostalgia connection to this live event that was sensationalized and was on TV or the papers or radio, whatever they had back then. And so without that, it's just a story about three people in a car driving across Texas. Like I think you guys are agreeing with me. Like without that, yes, there's a historical connection, but we don't know that historical connection. It's like someone, watching, I'm trying not to go too dark in the comparisons, but like if you didn't know about the Challenger incident or about the Oklahoma bombing or some sort of event, if you had no idea what was coming because you just didn't live in that time, it's not going to hit you in the same way.
Or what about that crazy woman who drove to Florida and wore diapers?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like that one.
The former astronaut, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Who drove across the country and wore diapers so that she wouldn't have to stop to go to the bathroom.
That's right, because she was thinking her husband, the astronaut, was having an affair or something, if I recall.
Yeah. Hey, that woman had a plan. She executed it.
She had watched this movie and had drawn story notes from it. No.
Darren, I get what you're saying. I absolutely get what you're saying. Like this was, this slow car chase, even though in the movie it takes place over the course of a couple of days, in real life it was just a couple of hours. And,
really?
Like max. And so it was sensationalized in the news, like you talked about, and you had small town America who wanted to get involved because they didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, I did get that.
Yeah. And the whole obviously I'm sure that there's some embellishment when it comes to Spielberg, making it, visually interesting. And at the same time, like my wife kept saying, like, why are there so many police cars? Like, why?
From all over the well, there's a lot of counties in Texas, Tristan. Like they divide those things up like a checkerboard. There's so many. Right. And I did look it up because for the very end, again, where they're trying to make it to Mexico. And I'm like, well, how far is Sugarland from Mexico? Sugarland is near Houston. It
Oh my
is like
gosh.
really far from Mexico. It is nowhere near Mexico. It'd be like a 3 to 4 hour drive to Mexico. So I'm sorry, guys, they're not making it to Mexico.
So you're saying there's some real time compression in the ending there?
Oh, major. I mean, was it implying that they drove through some sort of white fence barrier and were in Mexico at the end? Because I couldn't
That's
quite
how I took
tell.
it.
I kind of felt like it, right?
I saw a border
yeah.
patrol name somewhere,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
and then there's no more roads. So I guess that's what Americans think of Mexico, like in 1974.
There's like the Rio Grande River crossing, right? And so I took it that they made it to there.
Oh, that does make sense. That is the Rio Grande. Yeah.
But I had not investigated the geography to know that it was that far away.
Sugarland. I mean, we know Sugarland because it's a real place. And
See, it suddenly makes sense why it was nominated for Best Comedy Written for the Screen by the WGA Awards in 1975, because that's ridiculous. Like that's like unforgivable. That's the sort of thing that's even worse than when a DC native is sitting there watching the remake of 3 Days of the Jackal or whatever.
3 Days of the Condor.
That Bruce Willis was in, and they run down to the metro station, and it's suddenly like, the Canadian metro station, and like you're sitting there, you're a DC Metro audience, and you're like, oh, come on, guys. It wasn't that. Please, you could have filmed here. But no, that's amazing. I didn't know that it was that far apart.
That's
really stunning.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like unforgivable. Like, especially given the fact of what condition William Atherton is in the car when they start that journey.
I'm surprised that he's still alive because, well, one, in the real life event, he dies immediately, of course.
Yeah, he dies right in front of the house.
But there's also the fact that, it cuts away and all we do is we see the car leaving and then the other people are doing stuff. And I'm like, well, is the sheriff driving them? Like, I don't, it's not for a couple of moments till we get back in the car and we see, oh no, he's driving again. I'm like, really? Like, and then it's like the fakest red blood. Like, it doesn't look anything like blood. And I'm like, you're not making it, buddy.
I know, it totally looked like paint, right? Like when I saw that, it's like, that's
acrylic,
slightly pinkish paint.
That is straight up paint.
Which keeps the rating down, I guess. But
I want to give a side story. So I was born and raised in Urbana-Champaign, right in the middle of Illinois, the flattest land imaginable, all prairie. Just, I mean, you could shoot a bullet and hit Chicago. That's how flat it is. And so there was one time growing up. Do you guys remember the TV show The Profiler?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, there was an episode that took place, like the beginning of the episode took place, and it showed it on the map where it said Urbana-Champaign, and it was in the wrong location on the map. Like, it was 2 hours to the west. And on top of that, they show a car fall off a cliff into a fiery death. And I'm like, all of us watching at home are like, really? Like, we barely have a snow hill here.
I love that. That's, that makes these experiences charming, I guess. But for me, I just so long as we're talking about the ending, there's a heartless part of me inside that immediately critiqued how they set up. And I said, you didn't have a sniper across the street to catch him in crossfire in case he tried to get away. Like, I'm sitting there like plotting it out.
I thought they were going to shoot him as soon as they came over that first hill. And then it's like, now they're just standing outside talking. And I'm like, okay, did the plan change? Because you spent a lot of scenes setting up this sniper.
This is Texas. Their gardeners have guns. Come on.
No, but
gardeners do have guns. There's a whole sub scene about that.
Well, I do like the fact that at the very least they established that those guys were getting arrested because they were no longer active reserve and stuff like that. And
think about the property damage. Oh my God. The property damage.
Yes.
Sidebar to the red car. And you have, Bob and Joe Texan who are just like, hey, we heard it on the radio, so we're going to catch him. And they just shoot up that lot like crazy. Almost I was getting worried because at that point, and especially towards the end, when the escaped convict is wearing like the hat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to shoot the patrol officer by mistake, and then I got more worried because these two guys obviously don't care about anything. They're just shooting anybody and were rightfully chewed out for it.
Yeah, they wanted a pat on the head.
Well, what's interesting too is I think you can see that carry forward to Jaws, because there's a pointed scene where the locals
they're not going to make it out of the bay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And but like that, we don't see anything so much, in your face like this, but it is something that recurs. And it's always interesting to see those sorts of things recur with somebody. It almost seems as if now I can look at Sugarland Express, and then there are a couple of elements where very obviously Spielberg says, oh, well, this kind of worked, but maybe I went a little too far, and he's able to bring it forward, because the movie Jaws doesn't really resemble the book,
right?
Except that there's a shark, and so you can sort of see how he carries forward those sorts of critiques or moments or stuff like that. I'm surprised we didn't get something in Jurassic Park about natives flying over to hunt dinosaurs to help them out or something.
That's true. In Jaws, like, they also have those two old men on the dock who, put a hook in a roast and throw it in. It's very similar to like, oh, hey, this is the popular thing right now. We're just going to try to do our civic duty and help out, when they're just not prepared at all.
I feel like you guys are just really bummed we're not reviewing Jaws.
Well, we're not trying to review Jaws, Tristan.
I'm totally just messing with you.
As the car swam across Texas, as you
there's
could
water
say.
in this too. There's water here,
now,
and a sheriff.
I want to chime in. I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to say that one thing that really impressed me about this film, because I know that, like, I think we're all in kind of agreement of how we felt about this movie. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's this unspoken thing going on. But one thing that really impressed me was the cinematography. Mm-hmm. By far. Like, as I was watching this, I was like, oh, this is 1974? Okay. Mm-hmm. Like, this is interesting. Like, this is, like, holy crap, that's how you shoot inside of a car. And I started reading more and more about it. And the cinematographer, I cannot pronounce his name, Vimos Zsigmond. I think the Z is silent.
I think it's Vilmos Zsigmond.
Sounds right.
Yeah. So the guy did Deliverance, The Deer Hunter. He photographed Close Encounters and The Long Goodbye. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing. But this was the introduction of the Panaflex, which was a much more compact camera than what was available in the early 70s and the 60s. And so that allowed Spielberg and
to put a camera in the car.
Put a camera in the car. And it was the first movie to have a complete 360 pan with dialogue in a car, and also the first movie to feature a tracking shot from the front seat to the back. I mean, I know that sounds silly, saying out loud in 2021, the year that we're recording this, but in 1974, that was a huge deal. And
it's like the Steadicam in Rocky. It's like one of those first shots.
It's exactly like that. That is 100% what I was thinking about.
We're talking about Rocky now.
But it was just, I think that was probably the best thing about this movie, was the inventive cinematography. And apparently Spielberg and Zsigmond had breakfast every single morning and plotted out the day. They're like, this is what we want to do today. This is how we want to shoot it. And they shot it in continuity, which is also cool.
Which makes sense.
Because
for
when
this
you think
kind of
about
film,
like how they're traveling and how many cars they add, that would be a nightmare for the script supervisor.
And now we're going to shot the opening shot. There's only one car. Hide the other cars somewhere. I don't know. Put them somewhere.
Yeah. And I think just as a newbie director, just trying to manage all of that production, all of those cars over that much space, and it just, like, having a cinematographer who clearly knows what he's doing. I think that was the most impressive thing to me. Like, even though this wasn't one of the best films, and there was a lot wrong with it, and we've all agreed on the pacing, I think, the tackling this as a freshman director, this kind of scope, I think is very, very impressive, because that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, Darren, you and I went to film school, and there's a lot of people who went to film school and didn't do anything with it. There's a lot of people who went to film school and said, like, this is a credential. But when you go to film school, you start to learn that being a director has so little to do with artistry. It's about
herding cats.
It's herding cats. It's about politics, and it's about managing your time, managing daylight, managing people, and just making sure that everything is put together. It's yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and making sure that you don't say no too often. And this, I think that is the biggest sign where I think, is it Zanuck or Zanuck? I can never remember. Dick Zanuck.
I always say Zanuck.
Zanuck? That sounds right. Dick Zanuck. This guy, a legend. Yeah. Absolute legend.
The producer, by the way.
He saw something in Spielberg, and I think Spielberg proved himself, even if this wasn't the greatest movie of 1974 or the 70s.
Made money. It made
money,
a budget of $3 million and made 12, so that's bad.
Awesome.
And it did get nominated for awards, so there's that as well. I mean, it did. It got nominated at Cannes Film Festival and everything like that. So obviously, I do think that a point made earlier is that, Darren, you were saying, like, we just have too much distance from it. This is a movie that benefited from the recency effect. It's a movie that capitalized. And that's one of the things, too, to speak to this technical aspect. And I don't know if this will necessarily be an opinion that anybody else would share, but basically when I look at this, it's a really well-crafted, classy exploitation movie. Seriously. Like it's taking the rip from the headlines aspect. It's taking the crime drama aspect, the human drama aspect, all of the stuff that made people buy their newspapers and listen to it and read about it and all of those sorts of things. And typically movies like this are done in that short time frame. They get some first time director out there, somebody who just wants to get the credit. Spielberg would be in that position, and you get something where you look at it and you're like, oh no, this wouldn't be made today. Oh no, but you look at this and you see somebody who has polish already. To speak to the cinematography, there are shots where I could look at it and say, yeah, that looks like a Spielberg movie. And
the end shot against the golden sunset,
right?
I mean, it's the most cinematic shot of the entire film,
right? And there's even that tremendous, the focus tracking trick where the guy's looking through the window with the gun, and it compresses the foreground and the background and gives you that weird vertigo effect. Like that shot alone, you don't see stuff like that in this quick turnaround, shoot it in 30 days. We want to just make this movie and make a couple of bucks sort of thing. And so you see something. I do think, like I said, I came into this movie, what would say to me, this kid can handle Jaws. And I saw plenty of stuff where I say, okay, the visual language here and the performances he gets from people, especially the guy who played the sheriff, the one that they talk to.
Right. That'd be the Captain.
Captain Tanner, Ben Johnson. Yeah, Ben Johnson. Especially the performance he gets from Ben Johnson. You see the hallmarks of somebody who can make something special with something. Right. And even if this movie isn't, I would want to give, I'd want to give the kid another chance too. I'd say, like, hey, you know what? You brought this in on time, on budget. You got a couple of award nominations and people seem to like it. You know what? Here, we're going to give you this. We're adapting this best-selling book. Worked with this Coppola kid over there. You show some promise. Let's see what you can do with it.
Well, and it's interesting again with the subject matter. I mean, it makes me think of, like, what if they had made a film about the OJ carjack, drive? Like that was a big thing here in Southern California, where the cops were chasing, the Bronco, and that was, it lasted a day, but that was like news. I mean, I still remember that from the early 90s and watching the TV. But it also makes me think, maybe I don't understand the legal system, but I'm trying to picture, like, in the 70s, like do they really think they're getting their kid back? Because that was a little harder for me to get past, because I'm like, you guys are like felons at this point. You've done so many things wrong,
Broken a lot of laws.
Yeah.
See previous statement from Tristan Ari. She's crazy. Like
True.
this is obviously what I like about it is the movie manages not to pass judgment on these people who obviously aren't the brightest people in the world, who aren't.
They're trying to make the best of a bad situation. They end up making it worse, but they are actually relatively smart. Like I love smart protagonists and villains, and the fact, like with the whole outhouse scene.
Yeah.
Like he's very smart, and not that they make perfect decisions, but they're not dumb, and they don't make the simple falls that would make the cops win right at that moment.
Right. I agree with that. And I think that there's just, it blows my mind because it has that title card at the end where it says, oh, she served some time on, and then got probation. Then she got her kid back. I'm like, wait, what? That's not, even if that's what happened in real life.
It is what happened in real life, which is even crazier.
I don't want to know that, because then I start thinking, well, how did that turn out for everybody? And I don't know. I don't know if I want to know, that's the sort of thing where, I don't know. Like, I would be very interested, not in a sequel to this or something like that.
Sugarland 2.
Yeah.
The caravan's even longer, just beginning.
Coming out in 2022.
The gold ticketing. But I would be interested in some sort of dramatic movie about that part of the process where she does her time, but manages to show enough growth to take custody of her child. That's probably a very fascinating story, because
who was her lawyer? How did they deal with it?
Right. And compared to who I see in this movie versus the type of person I see receiving custody of their child after that, that's a tremendous journey. That's an incredible journey for a board to look at that and say, yeah, okay, we believe you. That's pretty stunning.
Yeah, and that's how it actually happened. She was sentenced to 5 years, and she only served 5 months, and then she got her kid back. And I guess in the 70s, it was like, we really want the kid to be with their birth mom. Like, it almost doesn't matter what you do, but we need to, that's what's best. And yeah, but again, being distanced from the actual event and from the decade and just the way things were, I think that there was that small part of my brain that kept trying to wrap my head around, like, it's almost drifting into fantasy, because I'm not buying what's happening at a point, that this is actually how the police would operate. They're like, they're really like hands off. I mean, they're obviously pursuing them, but they are not like any other cop movie before.
But see, maybe that is one of the key mistakes here, is that it keeps the real world ending saying that she got her kid back after 5 months. And what you were talking about, where the real world event was a couple of hours versus a days long thing with all of this sort of stuff. I see all of this stuff in this movie and I can't believe it. But if you tell me, well, she lost her mind, they went for a couple of hours, unfortunately the guy died, and she sort of realized how badly she'd screwed up.
That's true.
Back into that and be like, well,
hours versus like a weekend. Cause yeah, it's like, it just gets, it gets progressively worse. And you're like, the manpower, the type of resources they're committing to this, and you're just going to get off and get your kid back.
Right.
I mean, you did see the support of the community, which I think did establish a little more of like, this is maybe how America feels, or oh, I see myself in you, because other people were supporting them as they're cruising through the slow speed chase. It almost gave me a Blues Brothers feel, with like a ton of cop cars just, just following a car across multiple counties. At least it had that in common.
Well, and also a giant car crash with a bunch of cop cars.
That's
which
true.
The Blues Brothers 6 years later would do a real one-upmanship
which
job.
It makes me wonder, like, is that a real piece? The two Illinois cops who are testing out the new, I mean, they look new, green cars, and they're like, hey, it's 3 miles away. That's a good breaking in period. And then they crash them. and cause havoc. A lot of car crashing. You're right. Like those cars were built like tanks, but they definitely, I think there was one shot where he was like literally working on the front with a blowtorch and he just backs up and drives away because it's time to go. We got to get back on the line.
I know that this is just to speak to how cars used to be built. Okay. Just to give some sort of perspective on that. My best friend in high school and through the years, he had a 1978 Ford LTD station wagon. We called it the war wagon. Okay. Because this thing looked like it could take a nuke. He's driving a back road one night. There's ice on the road. The car does a 180, slams into the side of the road where there's a signpost. He's like, okay, I'm alive. And he just drives the rest of the way home. He takes the fender off. He takes a sledgehammer, 5-pound sledgehammer, hammers the dent out from the inside, puts the fender back on. All you could see was like a little chip in the paint. And he's like, yeah, I'll get around to painting it. So yes, they did make those cars. Like I was going to say, it's like, oh, there's this big car accident. Everybody survived it though. Like everybody was alive. No cars like crumpled or anything like that. So,
which is true. It's like, so there's two ends of the spectrum. Either you have a car crash and you just dig it out, or it's a car crash and there's no airbags and everybody's just dead. Like there's no in between.
Right.
It's either a death machine or a tank. There's no in between for these cars.
Yep.
All right. Well, and yeah, we would see a lot of these actors go on to other things. As we've said, this film was right before Jaws, and who knows if he was jotting little sharks in his notebooks on the last couple of days of filming as he's thinking about the next thing. But let's move into ratings, unless there's other things we missed. Again, there's not as much to this film, but that's all right. I think it had a lot of earmarks for Spielberg. We have John Williams, we have the cinematography, we have, again, with what he's given, we do connect a bit with the characters. But let's go with car enthusiast John Mills. How many fender benders? No, how many stars are you going to give the Sugarland Express? The is very important, I think.
Yeah.
Like the Jaws, but no, it's...
I kind of struggle with this part of it, in all honesty, because I do see the skill with this, and I do see everything that went into it, and I see, like we've been talking about, I can see where Spielberg's going. I see the trajectory here. I see why he got another job. I see all of these sorts of things. I think the music was fine, like all of this stuff. But I will never revisit this movie. And if I'm going to be honest, I'm probably being generous because of all of the art I see packed in here. Oh, not art, but craft. All of the craft, all of the absolute skill that is behind the camera that's going to pay off later. But I got to be honest, this is out of 5. This is a 2-star for me. It's, I think it's worthwhile to go back and say, like we are doing, where do I see Spielberg's trademarks? Where do I see where he's going? Where do I see the potential? But there's nothing about this movie that makes me say, yeah, I want to sit down with the family one day and rewatch this because I was just so engaged by everything. Like so 2 out of 5.
All right. And Tristan, how many harmonicas would you give this movie and its score? Yeah, I think, John shared a lot, but where would you rank this? And, you feel free to leave room to go up as we progress into Spielberg's career.
I echo a lot of what John said. The craft is what is amazing. Like when you look at what it takes to make a movie, when you look at the behind the scenes of what I kind of what I talked about earlier about, like, herding cats and trying to get everything together and shooting in continuity, gathering all those cars, managing all those cars, getting performances out of Goldie Hawn and Atherton, and like using a new camera in order to innovate new ways to shoot inside of a car. The craft is phenomenal, but the movie is not. And to me, 2 stars is, on my personal rating system, 2 stars is a bad film, and 2.5 is missed the mark. And so I'm going to say 2.5 because I didn't think this is a bad movie, it just really wasn't good. And it's not something like John said, it's something that I'm never going to revisit. So I'm going to be a little bit nicer and say 2.5.
Oh, well, future historians of Spielberg will bless you for that 0.5. Yeah, I again, with leaving room to grow and like you guys have said, you see the pieces, you see what the writing on the wall. It's definitely enough to give him another chance. And what he did with that chance redefined summer movies. So it's kind of hard to compare. It's like, well, what about that movie before he redefined summer movies? How is that one? Because that's what we're doing. But yeah, I'm going to give this a 2 as well. Just on that scale. Remember, guys, I gave Terminator a 2. It's still, you won't let me forget it. But I
never will let you forget that one.
I
Not
think,
at all.
There's room for him to grow. But it's going to be really interesting seeing where this goes with this Spielberg. Am I pronouncing it right? Maybe we should, watch his career with great interest. No, obviously we will. Next time on Houselights, as we go decade by decade through Steven Spielberg's career, we're going to jump into the 80s and talk about Always, which aired in 1989. Again, I don't know a lot about this film, which is good because we'll approach it unspoiled and unreviewed.
John, have you seen it?
No, I don't even have a clue as to what the hell it's about.
I've seen it, and I cannot wait to host this one next week because I don't even care if anybody knows it. I love this movie. Like, I really do. I love
2.8 is what you're saying?
Sharpen the knives, Darren.
Like, yeah, don't like no.
We can hurt him with this one.
Like, no, if you hate it, I want to know why you hate it. That's good. Like, honestly, like if this is one of those films where you're like, oh, this didn't connect with me. Like, I'm not giving anything away. My love of this movie does not give anything away, and it's one of those films that actually I was watching a South Park episode, and Spielberg. Like, they were referencing Spielberg, and one of the newscasters was just like, Steven Spielberg is in town, known for such movies as Always in 1941. And I was like, aw.
So they picked those two. So that kind of says something.
That says something.
Am I about to enter something that's going to blow my mind? Because I always figured 93 was the year where like Spielberg developed his split personality of Jurassic Park on one end and Schindler's List on the other. And instead, I'm going to find out that was actually 1989 because I've seen Last Crusade, 4,000 or 5,000 times. And then I'm going to discover that Always was actually where the split occurred, where he was like, all right, I'll do your stupid blockbuster, but I'm also going to do this thing for myself. Is this what I'm about to witness?
Well, Always is not a blockbuster. But
oh, no, I know that.
But yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to see what you guys think of this film. And even though I love this film, me that I'm not one of those people who are like, well, you don't like, well, you don't get it then.
We only have 5 stars to give out. We have to be really stingy with it. But
yes.
Yeah. So if you didn't know that Spielberg did a film in 1989 called Always, like many people might not know, they can watch it and find it in their local library before we talk about that next week. But John, if someone wanted to talk to you about all of the different kinds of cars, maybe a list existed somewhere that were in the Sugarland Express, where would they find you?
Well, if they want me to do the Google search for them, they can find me over as Kessel Junkie on their social network of choice. Find me on Letterboxd. I have a lot of fun there. And you can find me right here on the network co-hosting a show called Aggressive Negotiations, which is a Star Wars podcast that I do with Matthew Rushing that's a little bit off the beaten path. So check that out if you would. Tristan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at The Insane Ramen. You can also find me also on the network at thenerdparty.com with a Star Trek show called Second Contact, a Lower Decks commentary podcast. And we are in full swing. We're moving forward, and season 2 of Lower Decks has started, and we're having a lot of fun. So please check it out because it's a great show. And Charlene Schmidt and I absolutely love it, and we love talking about it, and you'll love listening to it. Darren, how about you?
They can find me at drsci-fi.com with my projects, troops, and products. They can also find me here on the network talking about Star Trek on City Alpha 3, a podcast I do with Philip and Daniel, talking the Trek every week. And they can also find me on Maker's Method, our Maker show, as we talk about failure, loss, creativity, cutting ourselves, all sorts of crazy things in the maker world, and also here on Houselights. Well, gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun talking about the Sugarland Express. I'm really looking forward to talking always next week. Again, you can listen to this and many shows here on the Nerd Party Network. Go to thenerdparty.com. Houselights is roaring. We have Missing Frames back in action, Second Contact, all sorts of great shows for anything that you want to listen. That's what I love best about the network, just the variety of things. There's something for everyone, and it's coming to your podcatcher of choice every week. So until next time, keep on the house lights as we roll down to Sugarland.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.